What's up, guys? All right, so just kind of a random impromptu live here. See how many people pop up. When are we having new instructionals? So I just filmed 2 new instructionals about a week and a half ago. So those should be out hopefully in the next couple of weeks, or at least one of those will be out in the next couple of weeks, and then the other one will be out maybe a few weeks after that. So I have a few more coming, and then looking to film another one pretty soon. So we'll have 3 coming out back to back. Really excited for the seminar in Greece. Yeah, man, it's my first time in Greece, so I can't wait to check it out. It looks beautiful. I've always wanted to get to know it, so it's my first time there. I'll see you guys soon, September. So the next instructional is the 2 that I just filmed this week and a half ago was one was Ashigurami and the other one was X-Guard. And so basically trying to do more niche topics. So each one of the subsequent instructionals will be tied together and then they'll all be tied together as a series. So Ashigurami was filmed, X-Guard was filmed, and those are the next 2 set to release. And then we'll kind of play off of those as we go on. I haven't spoken as to my decision yet for CJI versus ADCC, so I will be talking about that hopefully soon on the YouTube channel. Hopefully within the next week or so, I'm planning to release my decision on that. You should fight MMA. Every time I get on a live, somebody tells me that. I actually do have 1 MMA fight, so if you go on YouTube and you look up Giancarlo Bodoni MMA, you can see it. Back in 2016, I did an MMA fight. Butterfly Guard instructional, you missed the sale. Well, there's always going to be sales on Fanatics, fortunately. Or you could just go in and pick it up. Any updated information about the second Grapple in Paradise event? Yeah, so Grapple in Paradise, I don't know what the last thing that you've seen, but it's pretty much set up. All the information's on the website. Essentially what we've done for the second one, which is a major upgrade to the first one, is we have 4 different pricing packages that start where the top one, essentially the most expensive one, is the all-inclusive, okay, where you'll get basically hotel, transportation to and from the both the training sessions and the events that are listed on the excursions, essentially, that are part of the camp. So you get hotel, transportation, obviously all the jiu-jitsu sessions. We are going to have some meals included. So, you know, group dinners and things like that are all going to be included. So that's the all-inclusive pricing package. Then we also have the same exact thing, but without a hotel. So there's only a limited number of hotel rooms that we have available at that package. So if those sell out, or you choose to just book your own hotel room or wherever else, there's an option for that. And we also did that in case somebody wanted to room with somebody else who booked the all-inclusive. So let's say, for example, you and a friend, or you and a spouse, or whoever, you and another person were both coming to the event, and your one person booked the all-inclusive with the hotel room included. The second person could book the second tier option, essentially, which is everything included with the exception of a hotel room and then you could just stay with the other person, and then you guys could split that difference. So that's why we added that option for either people who were either locals or wanted to book their own stay or wanted to room with somebody who got an all-inclusive package. Then we have a jiu-jitsu only option, and then we have the +1 option. And the upgrade from the +1 option that we didn't have on the last event, or the first event I should say, is that the +1 option was essentially made so that people could come, if you were coming with a spouse, for example, and somebody who didn't train jiu-jitsu could join in on the excursions. But what we've done is we basically added extra activities so that during training sessions, your spouse, for example, who doesn't train jiu-jitsu, buys a +1 ticket, they can come on all the excursions with you, but they also have things like, you know, pool cabanas and other stuff that we have set up so that during grappling sessions, they wouldn't have to, I mean, they would have the option to, if they wanted to, just watch the grappling session, or they could go and do something that was already pre-planned with all of the other +1s. So that was the idea behind that. So it was a huge project for sure, but I'm super happy with the way that we organized it, and I think it's going to be a super cool camp. So as far as updates on it, outside of that, unless you had any specific questions, the event is all pretty much ready to go. We've already set everything up, so now it's just a matter of filling the remaining spots. How do you balance jiu-jitsu and weight training? So now it just depends on the time of year, you know, what's coming up as far as tournaments goes, things like that. But right now I'm doing weightlifting 2 days a week, jiu-jitsu 7 days a week, and that's pretty much my split. And then I'll also do some low intensity, steady state cardio 3 days a week as well, just for like 30 minutes. And that's pretty much it. You know, there's times of the year where I need maybe, you know, if I'm trying to put on a little more strength or a little more size, I'll increase that weightlifting volume, maybe decrease. Instead of doing 2 jiu-jitsu sessions a day, I'll do 1 jiu-jitsu session a day, probably not leading up to a competition. That would be more of like in an off-season context. But as far as weightlifting goes, it's really just kind of like it depends on what you need. Like, are you looking to gain strength? Are you looking to gain size? And really, it's not gonna make or break it, you know, unless you're just inherently weaker and you feel the need to increase, you know, strength or whatever the case is. Then I would say weight training is important, but it's not gonna be the make or break. I do it, but it's not something that occupies a ton of my time, at least not right now. Greg Sodders, legitimate or beta? I have no idea who that is. So CJI, I'm going to talk about that on my YouTube channel. So there will be a video where I address CJI as far as what my thoughts are on it, and my decision whether or not I'm going to compete there or not. So I will reveal that, but I won't reveal that right now. What does your average day in the life look like? Pretty much Monday through Friday, I'm waking up in the morning, breakfast. On my days that I do 2 sessions a day, I'll do breakfast and go straight to training. If I'm doing, or 2 jiu-jitsu sessions a day, I'll go breakfast and go straight to training. If I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, I'm usually doing breakfast and then going to lift weights, which is about 2 days a week. And then every day we have an afternoon practice, so I'll do that 7 days a week. I'm teaching 5 days a week, and the schedule varies day to day, but mostly it's jiu-jitsu, rest a little bit, jiu-jitsu again, teaching. And then, you know, some days it's weightlifting, then jiu-jitsu, then teaching. But that's pretty much it. And I'll start doing more vlog style stuff. You know, we released some Road 2s recently on the YouTube channel, so we're going to be releasing a little bit more like day in the life content, because I know you guys have been liking that. So I'll get to show you guys a little bit more of my my daily routine there too. What are you working on in your game right now? What do you feel like needs the most? Right now, I'm always working on something, but right now, because we are so close to major competition, it's really just about sharpening the techniques and tactics that are going to be needed to win in that specific criteria. So it's a lot of wrestling. It's a lot of guard passing. It's a lot of, attacking the back, attacking turtle. Things like, from bottom position, entering legs and using it to gain top position and things like that. So stuff that I'm always, obviously cognizant of, stuff that I'm obviously always working on, but it's more so the skills goes from working on your skills overall in a general sense to working on your skills much more specifically. And it becomes a little bit more mundane, a little bit more repetitive, but that's just the nature of, a competition camp. Is it worth investing in front headlock attacks besides go behinds like Darces, anacondas, high wrist, etc. if you don't have the longest arms? Yeah, 100%. The biggest, the whole general theme behind chest to back in front of the elbows, which was the first iteration of the Essential Connection series, the 4-part series on BJJ Fanatics, was that we essentially play a dilemma between positional game and submission attacks, and that's the biggest difference that front headlock has compared to wrestling in jiu-jitsu, is that in wrestling, when you're in a front headlock, you don't have the risk of submissions, or you don't have the ability, if you're the attacker, to create a threat of submissions. And so the entire DVD is based around that theme. And I basically split it. I say positional and submission attacks as if it's 2, but I basically split it into 3, which is essentially attacking front headlock with strangles, attacking go behinds, and putting your training partner down to a hip with like wrestling style techniques. Singles, doubles, ankle picks, cradles, etc. Okay, where you knock your training partner down to the hip, and when you knock them down to the hip, there's another dilemma at play that branches off of the submission and the positional dilemma in front headlock, and that's a dilemma between conceding bottom position, okay, usually in some sort of guard or half guard chest to chest, or giving back exposure. And so that's a third head to that game there. It's playing between go behinds, submission attacks, but also you can branch that positional attack into 2 parts, going behind or creating a dilemma between putting your partner down to a hip, in which case they either, one, decide to concede guard just to not have their back exposed, or if they're reluctant to concede bottom position, which presumably the reason why you ended up in a front headlock was because somebody was looking to fight for top position, either via their attempt to attack you with some sort of leg attack, like a double leg, for example, and you sprawled on them and ended up in a front headlock, or you proactively getting to front headlock. And whichever case that is, it's usually either an attempt of your training partner looking to put you down and take you into top position, or them looking to retain some sort of top position and then you snapping them into a front headlock. And so that's the game there. So yeah, 100%, it's worth investing in. You should 100% be investing in front headlock strangles. That's one of the main places that you have to know how to strangle people from, is chest to back in front of the elbows. My walk around weight normally is, so 88 kilos is 193.6, I believe, or 0.4. Let's just call it 194 for a round number. And so I walk around at around 205 pounds. I've been walking around 205, roughly 205, 206. So it's not a huge cut. It's like a 10 to 12 pound cut, depending on the day. I mean, there's days even where I wake up at like, the low 200s. So I'll walk around, 201, even 200 pounds. When I did the IBJJF Grand Prix, I was regularly in that training camp waking up between 199 pounds and 202 pounds. So it was like roughly a 3 pound fluctuation. And I ended up just eating as much as I could those last few days, just to kind of refeed myself. And I ended up weighing in at like 203 and a half. So, yeah, I would say on the heavier side in full camp, eating clean and healthy, waking up. My waking weight's usually anywhere between 204, 206, sometimes 207. Just depends on the day, water fluctuation, etc. Greg Saunders is DeAndre Corby's coach. Okay. I don't really know much about him. What do you think? How do you think Joseph Chen will do against Ty Rotolo? Definitely an interesting match. Joseph, I watched him last night at Who's Number One, and he had a dominant performance against a trials winner. I think the rule set definitely plays a factor, especially with his opponent, Elijah Dorsey's style. I think he performs better in that ADCC style as opposed to a sub-only style. But with that being said, both on a positional side as well as the submission side, I thought Joseph Chen looked great against a really skilled opponent. So I think that was probably up until now his biggest test. Obviously, Ty is going to be a much bigger test for him. Stylistically, they both I think match up well against each other. It's going to make for an exciting match. Obviously, Ty is a very high pace athlete, moves a lot. Joseph Chen is the same. I think Joseph Chen's probably a little bit more well-rounded as far as technical skills go. But Ty has so much experience competing at a high level for so long. So how do I think he does? I think it's going to be a good match. It could go either way, honestly. It's hard to say because Joseph really hasn't been tested on the competition side against somebody of that caliber yet. So I think it'll be a good match. I definitely like his odds, but again, it could go either way. I'm 58, about to enroll in a school that just opened up in my little town. I have stand-up training. Any advice? So you have standing training, as in you've trained stand-up before, like wrestling or judo. I would say if you have a background in standing position, say you came from a judo or a wrestling background, I would say just focus on getting comfortable on bottom, getting comfortable with pin escapes, getting comfortable with guard retention, getting comfortable with working from bottom position, working off your back, because especially at 58, most 58-year-olds, or even people that you're going into your average jiu-jitsu school and you're going to compete against people. Let's say you're going to train against people that are roughly anywhere between their late 20s to all the way up into their 50s. Most likely those people are not going to have very much standing experience, if any at all. And if you come from a standing background, you wrestled in high school, you did judo, whatever the case was, even if you weren't a high level practitioner, you have enough experience to where you can at the very least hold your own against them, or if not, get the better of them and use that to control the pace of matches, control where the match goes, as far as in a live role. So I would definitely keep that in your back pocket, keep working on those skills, but also you understand that you're doing a different sport, and so you have to, number one, step out of your comfort zone, and number two, focus on what the essence of that sport is. And for jiu-jitsu, the most foreign thing for anybody getting into jiu-jitsu is playing off of their back. So I would definitely start there and then learn how to integrate your standing experience with the jiu-jitsu skills that you then, add to your repertoire. How long before your match do you eat, and what do you eat? Good luck, bro. Keep it up. Usually day of the tournament, I just eat intuitively. So if I'm hungry, I eat. I usually typically stick to a lot of carbohydrates, proteins like lean meats, chicken breast, some steak, eggs, white rice, fruits, that kind of stuff. But I just eat intuitively. I don't have like a day of like specific meal plan. It's going to depend on what time of day I'm competing and things like that. Am I doing multiple matches? Am I doing one match? So I don't really do anything too different. I'll eat pretty much the same things that I eat every single day, and I'll just eat intuitively throughout the day. Is ecological approach bullshit? So from what I understand about the ecological approach, I don't know much about it. From what I understand, there's no drilling or no learning. It's all essentially positional sparring. So I do believe that positional sparring is the best way to actually more rapidly improve upon skills, but you have to have a foundation for those skills. So I think taking a day one white belt and just putting him at bottom side control and just having him hopefully find the way out. And again, I don't know if that's what the ecological approach is. Like I said, I don't really pay much mind to it, but I have heard of the concept. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the best way to go about it in the example that I just stated. Even for high level practitioners like myself, I don't drill. So I drill every day, but I don't drill moves just for the sake of getting reps in. I drill moves more so to either one, refresh my mind as to the motor patterns that I'm looking to tap into. So say, for example, in a competition camp, I'm going to be drilling pretty much the sequences, the techniques that I'm looking to employ, on that competition stage. And there's a myriad of them. So we'll kind of brush up on them every single day as, you get closer and closer to competitions. And then positional sparring is really where the magic happens. I mean, that's where you get to, in a live setting, take a niche area of your game and get to actually actively practice and implement the systems that you're looking to learn. So the way that I learn and the way that we train is all based around systems. There's a lot of creativity involved. There's a lot of experimentation involved. So there's intuitive actions and things that happen in live rounds that you just kind of intuitively do. And then later on, you might go in and say, hey, this worked, or I had success with this, or I attempted this move when my opponent did that in a mount round, for example. Let's play around with this sequence. This is something that happens a lot. And then you play around and you experiment, and then you ask questions, and hey, what if I do this? What if your opponent does that? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's usually the approach that we're taking is, we're drilling in terms of, refreshing your mind, as to the techniques and the motor patterns that you're looking to implement. And then you're going in, and after you've done that, you drill, you get your body nice and warm, through drilling. Then you can go into live positional sparring, where you're going into these small niche positions, a leg lock round, a turtle round, a back round, a Jujigatami round. And then obviously open rounds are where you go in and you practice, your tactical skills and getting ready for competition, getting your hard rolls in, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not educated enough on really what the ecological approach is, but from what I understand, in a general sense, it's essentially just doing positional sparring, without the need for drilling. So I think there's definitely a time and a place for drilling. I don't just drill for the sake of drilling, just drill for the sake of reps. I'm either drilling so that I can, one, understand the mechanics of a new move and really understand, what it's supposed to feel like to do this move, get the exact steps down, and get my body used to doing that move. And once I feel like I have it down, that's when I'll go in and I'll start practicing it in a positional round. And so that's essentially my approach. I don't know how that relates to ecological approach, but yeah, I think there's a time and a place for drilling, absolutely. Positional sparring, in my opinion, is where you get the most bang for your buck, and then you get your live rounds as well, which also have their purpose. How many meals a day do you eat every day? Total calories. Talk something about dieting, please. Yeah, so I'm eating right now 4 to 6 meals, depending on the day. Total calories right now is anywhere between 32 to 3,500 calories. So, Not a ton. It's a good amount of calories, but I'm starting to bring it down closer to 3,200 because of obviously I have to cut weight for ADCC. I don't have to bring it down a ton because of what's it called? The fuck was I gonna say? Jesus Christ, I just drew a blank there. Yeah, anyways, anywhere between 32 to 3,500 calories, 200 grams of protein, 385 grams of carbs, 95 grams of fat. But I did recently bring it down. I was eating closer to 4,000 calories, same amount of protein, same amount of fats, but just a lot more carbohydrates. So I've recently brought that down a little bit. Just depends on my training volume, goals, cutting weight, etc. But that's roughly where I sit at. When will you know the location and place we'll be training at and the excursions? It's all already known, and we're gonna release a sample itinerary. So the training sessions are going to be at Extreme Couture Gym. So that I can already say. There's a bunch of excursions that we have planned. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't remember them all now, but we have, like pool cabanas, we have Area 15, we've got kayaking stuff and a whole bunch of other things. I'm pretty sure those excursions are either available on the website or they're going to be released very soon. But I'm pretty sure if you go on the website, it'll at least have a general guideline. We're going to be releasing the schedule at least pretty soon. But everything's already set in stone as far as the actual training sessions. They're going to be held at Extreme Couture. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned before, there's also a jiu-jitsu only option. So if you didn't want to take place in the excursions, or you're a local of Las Vegas and you just wanted to come to the training sections, there's also a jiu-jitsu only option. That's going to be, I'm pretty sure that's available on the website, the information about the excursions, but I'll have to double check that. But definitely sign up to the email list so you'll get updates on all the upcoming camps. I mean, we're planning Costa Rica, we're planning Texas at least twice next year. So there's a bunch of other locations that we're looking to do them in. But the email list will definitely get you guys updates to it. So if you go on the website, you can sign up to the email list and follow the Instagram page. Also, we started a YouTube channel, so we'll be pumping out content on the Grapple in Paradise YouTube channel, Facebook page, all that stuff. So that'll have all of the updates there as well. Any plans to compete in the gi? I keep making tentative plans to compete in the gi, but I just keep getting sidetracked with more interesting opportunities without the gi. So I've considered doing a run at Worlds. It's all about timing. So for me, there's a bunch of stuff that I want to accomplish. No gi, there's a bunch of people that I want to compete against. There's much more incentive to compete no gi, and I'm just at a stage right now where I just enjoy doing it a lot more. I do enjoy training in the gi. I do enjoy teaching in the gi. But yeah, I think it will happen. I just haven't. I've had tentative plans, but nothing has been set in stone. I'm happy to take super fights in the gi. I'll compete against anybody pretty much. So I've got no problem doing that. But it's just something that has to be planned out. If there's interest and it generates, interest from the fans, that's something that I'm willing to do. First white belt tournament tomorrow. Any tips? I have a long, drawn-out YouTube video exactly about the question that you're asking. So go to the channel and watch that. That way I can actually get to the rest of the questions. And it's going to give you an extensive answer as to what my approach to your first tournament and or your first series of tournaments are, and how you should approach every subsequent tournament after that. So that was a video that a lot of people enjoyed, and I'll probably make another video following up on that one. But that's definitely a good place to start. So check out. It's literally called How to Prepare for Your First Tournament. What's your favorite destination or city you've competed in? City I've competed in, I really enjoyed competing in Kazakhstan. I've said that a bunch of times. Kazakhstan was a really, really cool place. I know it's not a city, but Almaty, Kazakhstan, was the city. Kazakhstan was a really cool place to compete in. There's a bunch of other cities that I've visited, done seminars at that I really love. But as far as cities that I've competed in, I've competed in Rome years ago. I think I was a blue or purple belt at a Europeans. Um, Rome's obviously an awesome city, but very, very new to me was Almaty, was Kazakhstan. So that, as of lately, was one of the coolest places for sure. What are things you saw changing technically in your game in every belt up until black belt? Fuck, dude, these questions are loaded and long and drawn out. There's a tons of things. I mean, I would say technically, blue belt, I spent a lot of time working on a closed guard, and that was essentially like the first position that I like systematized early on without even knowing, and that was due in part to watching a lot of Hodger Gracie competition footage coming up. Purple belt, I would say half guard passing. That was another position that, because of my instructor at the time, he was kind of known for, and he did a ton of half guard passing. So chest to chest half guard passing was something that I worked on a ton at that time. So as far as like niche areas that I like actively was looking to improve upon, that I essentially, and the way that I think about the question that you asked, not just because everything's changing technically, even things that you're not working on in the background are changing and are improving, or even potentially getting worse. But as far as like actively looking to add to a specific area, purple belt, probably half guard passing, purple and brown belt times, lots of guard. So lots of like De La Hiva, reverse De La Hiva game that I picked up a lot from training at Leprey's, and a lot of his knee cut and his passing stuff in the gi was really what I was adding on to. Black belt continued to do that, and then at the late brown, early black belt stages when I started learning from John, not necessarily training under him, but learning from him, through being Hazuke and things like that, and started to pick up a lot of things in little different areas of my game that I was able to add to. And then I started to really figure out, the way that he thought about jiu-jitsu and the way that he taught. It allowed me to take, what I already knew and start to create like little systems of my own. And my improvement skyrocketed very, very quickly, and my performance has also skyrocketed. And then I would say, at black belt, since moving here, a lot of no-gi bottom position as far as like engaging from guard, leg locks, both defensively and offensively, and standing position. Best MMA guy I've rolled with. As far as pure jiu-jitsu skills, definitely Gary Tonin. As far as just pure technical jiu-jitsu skills, best MMA fighter, as far as like, just as an MMA fighter that I've gotten to grapple with, GSP. I think that's kind of goes without saying. He's arguably, the best ever. I'd say I put him, if you had to, I would put him up there like tied with John Jones for, best ever, both on paper and just like technically. You can make arguments for a lot of people, and obviously that list is always going to flop. But as far as pure MMA fighter that I've grappled with, GSP, MMA fighter with the best grappling skills overall, pure grappling, probably Gary. Why do all MMA guys shit on BJJ? I don't think all MMA guys shit on BJJ. I don't know where you got that. Most MMA guys train jiu-jitsu. I don't think you can really perform well in MMA without having some base level jiu-jitsu knowledge. What do you do for warm-ups before competing, and when do you start to warm up? Warm-ups, it's really just drilling and creativity stuff. You usually do a generic warm-up just to raise body temperature. And then, do maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of drilling, starting on the feet, starting on the ground, just entries and things that you're looking to implement in the actual match. And then a lot of like creativity drills where your training partner is giving you like minor resistance, and you're kind of essentially like flow rolling. Definitely practice if it's standing position, maybe doing stuff with a little bit more explosion, just getting your body's motor patterns used to kind of exploding and generating force. Doing that for 3 to 5 minutes, again, just intuitively, however your body feels. I'm not going to exhaust myself in a warm-up, but I definitely want to get myself breathing heavy. I definitely want to get myself sweating. I want to get my heart rate elevated and then practice bringing it down. And so as far as how long before, again, a little bit intuitively, like if I'm in an arena and I know that the arena is cold, I'm probably going to start warming up sooner. I don't really have a problem getting hot, so I don't have a problem sweating, but I'm going to need to keep myself warmer for longer. So I have to take that into consideration to say, hey, I might have to do more warm-ups with less break in between. So maybe I keep them a little bit shorter, or maybe I start with a slightly longer warm-up to get my body warm, where I do 10 minutes straight or 15 minutes straight, and then I take a 5-minute break and do 2 to 3 minutes, take a 5-minute break, do 4 or 5 minutes, and then so on and so forth up until the match. And whenever I feel good, I feel good. Again, same thing, sipping water intuitively, things like that. There's not a whole lot of science behind it as far as like the best warm-up. I think it's kind of case by case. So yeah, just intuitively, but you want to get your body warm. You want to practice getting your heart rate elevated and getting used to that feeling of accelerated heart rate and calming it down while still moving. You want to get used. You don't want to like have your first explosions be on the mat. You want to hit a couple explosive takedowns and then take a rest and move around. You want to hit a couple explosive, guard passes. You want to have some tension and some aggression in your warm up, but nothing crazy to where you're burning yourself out or you're risking an injury. You're not going into live rolls or anything like that. Could you beat an average D1 wrestler in wrestling? So this is, again, context is super important. I don't have enough knowledge. Let me rephrase that. I don't have enough skills to compete at a D1 level in wrestling and pretend that I'm going to do well. I may be competitive for a little bit, but I'm just not skilled enough in straight up folk style Division I wrestling rules to be able to win in a wrestling match with wrestling rules, wrestling referee, time limits, and everything, just off the couch today. Even if I have all the knowledge around it, it takes time to develop skills. So even though I understand the techniques, I understand the rules, I know what it takes to win as far as I understand the idea behind it. There's a gap that needs to be bridged between knowing that and then actually converting that into skill, and that's a time consuming endeavor. So we get a lot of really high level wrestlers that have come through the room and that I've trained with over the years that I'm very, very competitive with on the feet, and under ADCC rules they don't score on me, and and in fact, I end up scoring on them. Now, on the other side, it's contextual. You put us in a D1 mat with, on a matted circle with wrestling shoes on, with headgear on, in a singlet, where the scoring criteria is different, you can be competitive, you can be physically able, you can understand, you can even know the techniques, but the context is different. And so winning a match under those circumstances is going to be difficult just coming off the couch. You got to bridge the gap between knowledge and skill, and that takes time. So having the potential to do it, I would definitely say that I do, but it's not something that I particularly am interested in, number one. And number two, it's something that takes time, to develop those skills. And D1 wrestlers, they're not as I'm say the average D1 wrestler, right? Not the elite D1 wrestlers, but the average D1 wrestlers aren't as high level as world level and Olympic level freestyle wrestlers, but they're still extremely high level wrestlers. What do you think of John's fundamental videos, and how far do you think they can get you in BJJ before it's not so important? I was fortunate enough to be a part of that series, Go Further Faster. I think it was an awesome series. And I learned a lot from it, even, being a high-level competitor at that time that he was filming it. And fundamentals never... people tend to have this thing where they say, hey, these techniques are fundamentals, and these techniques are advanced. And the reality is the jiu-jitsu is the same across the board, from fundamental to advanced. What changes is you take the exact same techniques. Let's say, for example, half guard passing. The techniques are the same. What ends up happening is you just add more variables to it. So you start to get more and more nuanced and more niche into a specific topic, because you're getting more and more high-level reactions. And so there's never going to come a time where a fundamentals technique isn't valuable to anybody. It's always going to be important, just depending upon your skill level and the skill level of your opponents. You're just going to face higher and higher level reactions, either on a technical level or on a physical level. You're going to get people that are extremely explosive, and they might, if we're talking about top half guard or half guard passing, you might deal with a guy that is extremely explosive and bridges you off. And so that's a reaction that you have to get used to. Or you may have somebody that's a little bit more technical and is looking to fight for butterfly hooks and gain inside position. You're just going to see more and more variables in all of these added to all of these fundamental techniques that really are the exact same techniques that you would learn as a white belt. They're just applied with more variables, more reactions that become more and more specific as you gain in skill level, and as the people you're going to compete or train against are higher in skill level. All right, let me scroll down a little because there's a lot of questions. Fuck, I missed this. What's the story behind the name Sheepdog? That's a good question. I think he probably has a video addressing that, but I can't really tell you off the top of my head. Any advice for a 16-year-old blue belt that really likes to roll? I would say just keep on rolling, man. That's what you fucking... If you like it, you should keep doing it. How many BJJ sessions do you do a week, and how many hours is that sparring versus drilling? I honestly can't tell you a number of hours. I don't have it. One, I don't run my own sessions. John runs the sessions, so it really is going to just be dependent upon him. But, I would say if I had to throw out a general number there, if I had to give you like a ratio, I would say if it's an hour-long session, which they're more than an hour, but if it's an hour-long session, I would divide it up to where it's usually in the ballpark of 30 minutes of drills, and then I would say 20 minutes of sparring, and then 20 minutes of positional sparring, then 10 minutes of live open round sparring. So you get about 50% drilling, 50% drilling, and then about 80% positional sparring, 20% live rounds. But again, that's not done on a day-to-day basis. It's going to vary. There's going to be days where you drill for 20 minutes. There's going to be days where you drill for 40 minutes. So it just really depends. But I would say the bulk of your training, if talking about sparring, should consist of at anywhere between 70 to 80% positional and 30 to 20% live sparring. Do you think it's realistic for athletes who started later in life to beat those who have competed since childhood? Example, 30-year-old with 8 years experience versus 30-year-old with 20 years experience. Yeah, I don't think that's unrealistic at all. It really depends upon what you mean by beating them. Is it, rolling in the gym? Is it in an ADCC finals match? Is it in, a local competition? I mean, you see it all the time where guys come out in competition where they have 4 or 5 years experience and they're beating guys that have been training for 15, 20 years. That's not unheard of. As far as, the example that you gave, you have two people that, are identical in age. Well, let's assume they're roughly identical in, athletic ability and roughly identical in athletic ability, same attributes, similar attributes, etc. On paper, the way that you labeled it, the 20-year experience should win. But now there's a bunch of factors that come into place. What have you done with those 8 years? Whereas, what has the other one done with those 20 years? What have you done in the last 6 months? Has the guy taken 6 months off and you've been training, 5 days a week? Now all of a sudden he's in bad shape and, you get the better of him in training. It really all depends. I wouldn't really even look at it that way. I would look at it as your own personal development, and then not basing your rate of improvement on, well, I trained with this guy and, he beat me, but he has 10 years more experience than I do. So I really wouldn't even look at it that way. I would look at it more so as your improvement rate relative to you. And who cares if you're beating somebody who has 20 years experience versus somebody who has, 2 years of experience. Base it on their overall skill level. And if you are training with somebody your own size and your own skill level, notice I didn't say in the experience level, I said skill level. That should be your essentially how you see where your rate of improvement is. What does your diet consist of? I already kind of addressed that a little bit already, but as far as food choices, I eat pretty much whole foods most of the time. Chicken and beef are my main protein sources, and eggs, milk, bread, avocados, fruit, things like that. Rice, pasta, potatoes. How has going from more of a dark horse the last ADC to favorite this year affected your mentality, if at all? That's a good question that I don't necessarily know that I have an answer to. I tend to try to not look at it that way, which is both a blessing as a curse, as much as it is a curse. Because when I was relatively unknown, I would just take any match that was presented to me, and there was no the from a career standpoint, there wasn't really a whole lot um, of risk involved, insofar as, if you lose a match, it's whatever, it's just experience. Whereas nowadays, matches are much more, there's much more risk involved in matches. And I've still adopted that, take um, any challenge that's presented to me mentality. So that's never really changed. But, there's definitely an angle that a lot of athletes take, which is, take the matches that only add value to your career. And that's something that I haven't really thought of or processed much. I just kept rolling into, whatever was presented to me. So, um, and it's not to say that I'll change that, um, but it definitely is something to take into consideration. Um, as far as my mentality, I think it hasn't really changed a ton. Skill development is still my number one priority. I think that's ultimately the defining factor, and so the more skilled that I can become, the more the more my likelihood of winning grows. And so that's really what the defining factor is. And so for me, I try to put that as my primary focus. But I do understand that there is something to, having high accolades in the sport, and having a target on your back, and you know things can happen in matches to where now all of a sudden you are the accolade uh, on somebody else's resume. And so that's something that I never thought of prior to. But my main focus, my main mentality is always going to be just acquiring new skills. That's really what keeps me motivated. Like when I go into the gym, if I don't feel like I'm evolving and I'm just going through the motions and just rolling for the sake of rolling, I just don't have as much interest in the sport. But fortunately, we're in a sport that is constantly evolving as far as, techniques and tactics and trends and things like that. So there's always something new to work on, and that's really what keeps me motivated. How can I improve my offense if my defense is already good? I'm having a hard time on just being first. I feel I have to feel in danger to react and counter, and sometimes I just give up too much. I mean, I think the answer lies in the question right there. In order to defensive skills are incredibly important and should be your first thing that you focus on. If you feel that you've developed a good, strong defensive foundation, now you have to take risks and have faith in your defense. Um, you're really going to see how good your defense is when you expose yourself. And the only way you can expose yourself is by taking risks. And the only way you can develop um, strong offensive skills is by taking those risks, by actually looking to initiate an attack on somebody. And that's going to come with some risk involved. That's going to come with you exposing yourself, to varying degrees depending on the situation. It's your job as you progress in offensive skills to minimize that threat. So as you become better offensively, you learn how to mitigate those risks and make it so that there's always going to be a risk involved. But if I go in for a specific movement, you're going in understanding the risk involved, and you can mitigate that risk and minimize it as your offensive skill progresses. And if you have good defensive skills, one, if your move does end up failing and you end up being in a bad position, well, you already have the defensive foundation there, so there's nothing to worry about at that point. And really, you just have to try attacking. You just have to practice attacking. I know that's something that it seems like kind of a bullshit answer, like just do it, then just attack him. But that's really as simple as you can make it. Is you literally have to just try to be the initiator. And again, it does come with some risk involved. But if you've done a good job in developing that strong foundational skill, because I know exactly what it's like to have a reactive game, to say, hey, I know I have good defensive skills, so I'm not really worried about getting threatened. Um, but I can't seem to get anything going here, you know. And in order for me to get something going, I need to let people in, and people aren't always going to engage with you, and so you have to change your mindset as far as going from being a defensive or a reactive player to being proactive. And that just comes with initiating and trying and doing it in the training room until you eventually develop that confidence to figure out, or you develop that confidence you know, have to go out and actually engage in offense and mitigate that risk that is associated with, you know, attacking somebody, because there's always going to be a risk when you open yourself up. But yeah, it's just shifting that mindset from being a reactive player where you're waiting for people to come into you and engage with you to be able to get your offense going, to being proactive and actually going in and setting up attacks. Do you ever teach private lessons in Austin? I'm in town recording for a few months. I definitely teach privates. My schedule's usually pretty full, but I get requests usually from out of towners. Interestingly enough, and I usually always make time on the weekends for privates. So that's definitely something that we can work out. Do you like Craig? Yeah, I've interacted with Craig only a handful of times, and he's always been cool with me. How's your training different now compared to when you were a lower belt? Yeah, so when I was a lower belt, it was pretty much just all live rounds, you know, and I wasn't really intentionally going into the gym as much, you know, with specific goals in mind or specific things that I wanted to work on, which I think is normal for people in their earlier stages. Um, you know, whereas now everything is much more, I mean, even recently in the last, you know, couple of years, my training's become much more professional insofar as, you know, I treat my practices now like a professional athlete would treat their practices, whereas before I would just go to training because I liked rolling, because I liked jiu-jitsu, and it was just a fun activity. I still have a lot of fun with jiu-jitsu, but especially in camps, it's much more of a militant like approach insofar as I'm looking to develop specific skills for a specific mission that I'm looking to accomplish. Like I'm training for a thing. I'm not just training because I like to do this. Um, and so I would say that my training's gotten more and more refined in a bunch of different areas. Um, and just gotten more professional over the years. Like even the things that I do outside of training are 100% influenced by the fact that I am training for a specific thing. Whereas before it wasn't like that. Like when I was younger, it didn't fucking matter what I did, you know, the night before. I was still going to go to train because I just wanted to train. I just wanted to go to the gym and, you know, grapple and get a workout in and, you know, see people that, you know, I liked at the gym. And that's just something that I enjoyed doing. And over time, it just got more and more, um, you know, important what I did outside of the gym, you know, and all that stuff influences not just your training sessions day to day, where really, you know, if I do something, if I do, like if I have a bad night of sleep, I could still get through a training session. It's not a big deal, but it's more so the compounding effect over time. And so I think that's kind of, if anything, my approach has just gotten more and more like a professional athlete. And so I try to definitely hone in on all of those things, both inside and outside of the training room as much as I can. All right, I'm gonna get through a few more. I'm gonna get to to a few more before we cut it. We've been here for an hour. Um, let's see. Is there a position technique system you consider adding to your game but change your mind for some reason? Um, Not really, because I've always really wanted to be well-rounded. And actually, I would go further in saying I didn't want to just be, jack of all trades, master of none. I really wanted to master this sport as a whole. And so if I feel that there's a stone that has been unturned, I'm gonna do my I'm gonna do my absolute best to make sure that I get to that. Whether it's immediately or in the future, there's always going to be an area, even if it's an area that I feel like I've explored for, ever, hours and hours and hours of training. I mean, there's always something like, I spent the chest to back series. Each one of those instructionals is 8+ hours. And there's shit that I'm doing now that it didn't even occur to me back then. And it's a very, very in-depth instructional. I mean, I get a ton of feedback from that whole series, right? Essential connections. But in all of those videos, there's stuff that, it's extremely profound, but there's new problems that I've encountered. Mainly as a result from training with a lot of the same people that have gotten used to, what I'm doing, and they're presenting new problems. But there's also just new techniques, little nuances and things that have made massive, massive differences. So even if it's an area that I've spent a lot of time on, there's always going to be something that you haven't seen yet, that you haven't touched, a new body type, a new attribute, a new technique, whatever the case is, and something that you have to add to. On one side, that's what keeps me interested in the sport. On the other side, it's incredibly frustrating because, like I said, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. Like, I don't want to be just a takedown and passing guy. I don't want to be just a leg lock guy. I want to be well-rounded, but not just good in all areas. I want to be exceptional in all areas. So there's not anything that I would turn away, even if it's something that I think is kind of a, you know, what would you call it? Uh, like something that's kind of like a bullshit technique, or that isn't particularly um, effective at a high level. I still want to at least know it, even though even if I know that I'm not going to use it, that I'm not going to really have it as part of my repertoire. It is still something that I want to at least know. Why do you stay out of the new wave versus B team drama? Because it doesn't relate to me. I don't have any actual beef there. Could you make a video at some point on escaping mount gi versus no gi and the differences? There's not really a whole lot of differences, to be honest, with the exception of friction. But insofar as you know, the grips, they're pretty much the same the as far as the most you know reliable techniques to get out of mount, which are variations of kipping escape and knee elbow escapes. And so the basic concepts are the same. The techniques don't have a whole lot of difference. So in reality, if you're good at those techniques, the only real needle mover insofar as, how quickly or how, easy or hard it is going to be to get out of those positions, gi versus no gi, is going to be the friction of the gi. I wouldn't even go so far as to say that, grips on collars and stuff is going to be really that much of a difference, because in training both gi and no gi with high level people, I haven't really noticed that made a whole lot of a difference. How often should kids compete to improve instead of only practicing and never competing? I'm a big believer that the younger you are, the more you should compete for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it's just good for kids in general, just in my opinion, just for their development as humans to get used to the idea of competition and the idea of winning and losing as, a foundation for their life, right? Their mindset and their approach towards life in general. Because that's a very real thing these days, is like nobody wants to be offended. Nobody wants to, hurt their kids' feeling and, winning and losing. No, it's, participation and doing your best and this and that. And it's like the reality is at the end of the day, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with losing, especially when you're a little kid. But you have to at least get used to the concept and just be comfortable with the idea of that. So I think that for that reason alone, they should definitely compete as often as they want to, but just get them comfortable with the idea of competing, of competition. I think it's healthy. I think it's good for kids in their development, regardless of whether or not they want to become pro athletes. And then on the other side, if they do want to be pro athletes, if they do want to be professional competitors in any sport, that's just experience. So that by the time they get to a level where it matters, right, where they're, when I say matters, it's like when they're actually professionals, right, when their life and their financial income is dependent on that, they're not going to be new to that concept. They're not going to be new to the idea of competing. And so the more, the better, in my opinion. All right, let's scroll through a few more of these. Optimal weights versus rolling split. There is no optimal. There's no such thing. Each person's going to be different, and so what's optimal for me is only going to be, number one, momentarily optimal, because that will change a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months, 2 years from now. What was optimal for me today is not going to be the same then, and it wasn't optimal for me in the past. And it's going to be completely different for you. So it's momentary. What you do is based around whatever your goal is. If you need to get stronger, then more strength training is important, and that should take the priority if that's what you need. If it's not what you need, then we'll figure out what you do need and then put together a plan in place to get to that thing. And then, ultimately, again, and what you'll need later on, once you get to that thing, is going to be something different. So your optimal is going to vary. It's going to be momentary. It's not going to be a forever thing. So I don't believe in like optimal rolling to weight split. I think it's going to be individual dependent, and even for each individual, it's going to change as time goes on, whatever their goals are, et cetera, et cetera. Danner stresses the importance of the tight waist versus Whizzer series. Why do we not see this series much in high level competition? That is, I don't know. It's literally probably one of the most common tie-ups in all of competition, both in wrestling and submission grappling. So, yeah, I don't know. I see it all the time. It happens all the time. And as far as the importance of it is because, one, it's a tie-up that you can either, one, initiate, or two, it can be reactive insofar as it can be a defensive reaction. So say, for example, somebody shoots in on a single leg on you, you sprawl and you pull them up with a whizzer. Now you're in a whizzer versus underhook situation. Maybe it's not exactly a tight waist where he's grabbing you around the waist, but it's still a whizzer versus underhook position. On the other hand, you could be in bottom half guard. You could come up on a single leg, come now all of a sudden you're in a wizard versus tight waist or wizard versus underhook situation. And it's one of those positions that's important to know, because you need to know it both offensively as the proactive player, both from the wizard and the underhook, and reactively as a defensive player from both wizard and underhook, right? You're in a wizard, you're in standing position, you can get thrown with an Uchimata, you can get taken over with a Kosoto. You're the tight waist player, you can take people down, you can drag people down to the mat, you can dictate where the match goes, et cetera, et cetera. So it happens all the time in competition. I don't know why. If you watch, I mean, I can't even point out a specific match now, which is kind of annoying, but it happens all the time. Just pick any tournament that is, a tournament setting, like a 16-man bracket. I'm sure it's gonna pop up if you just watch all the matches. What do you think about the ecological training approach? I talked about that a little bit before. Again, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it just seems to me like positional sparring. What do you think about Dima Murovani, Joseph Chen, Margot Cicerelli, Owen Jones, coach for ADCC trials? I don't even know who that is. No offense to whoever that guy is, but I don't know him. Went to your noon class yesterday. Awesome key motivations, very detailed. Thanks, buddy. No, John hasn't ever had an influence insofar as picking the competitions that we do. And as far as loyalty to a specific tournament, again, I'm gonna again, I'll address and I'll make my official statement as to the tournament that I want to compete in or that I will compete in soon. But he's never tried to steer us in any one direction or the other. I mean, he's pretty. Yeah, I've never had a situation where he's tried to force me to do one thing or the other. It's always been, and even times where I've asked him, for his opinion on, opponents that I should pick or tournaments that I should do or things like that. At the end of the day, he always boils it down to, well, how do you feel about it? That's literally always what it comes down to. And I think that, that's how it should be. You could give your opinion, but ultimately it shouldn't be something that influences the decision of the athlete for any other reason than the athlete took that information and decided that was the best decision for them. Um, so yeah. Will you do a seminar in Canada? Yeah, probably at some point. Really enjoyed your instructional and was wondering when the next efficiently executing video will come out. So I just filmed two instructionals about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So those will hopefully be coming out within the next, I want to say ballpark, let's just say 2 to 6 weeks for both of them. So maybe 2 to 3 weeks for one, 2 to 3 weeks after that for the next one. And the topics were Ashigarami and X-Guard. Do you take notes about all the systems and notes? How do you memorize that much knowledge? So I have never been a note taker. To be honest, I've never really even tried taking notes. But I have a pretty good memory when it comes down to a pretty good photographic memory to where I can visually remember things. And so for jiu-jitsu specifically, my memory's been pretty good as far as retaining knowledge. So that's really it for me. It's just memorizing everything literally in my brain just by watching it and listening, and mat time, spending time in there and feeling and getting experience in those positions. getting used to the reactions. And that for me really is what cements that, actually going in and applying the things that I'm learning in real time is what allows me to remember things best. All right, that's going to be the last one for me. 76 minutes. I'm going to try to come on this live more often, guys. So I know I said that last time I did a live, which was a while back, but I'm going to try to get on these at least once a week, if not more. So for everybody watching, ADCC versus CJI video, I will announce that. That is something that I have been getting asked a ton, and I do want to talk about and make a reveal for you guys as to what I'm going to ultimately do and what I think about both tournaments. Which I think both tournaments are both tournaments have a ton of great athletes in them. There's no shortage of good athletes in the sport right now. So that's number one. So I will definitely make a reveal to you guys at some point. Do a joint seminar up with Dante up in Canada. Yeah, hell yeah, I would love to. I do plan on visiting Canada this year, so I will be in Canada, most likely in Alberta. But I will be in Canada this year, and I'll definitely be hitting up gyms while I'm there. So when I do figure out the dates that I'm going to be going to Canada, I will try to set up. I'll try to set up a seminar or two at the very least up there. Spend some time teaching up there and training with you guys. So yeah, that video will come out, and then Grapple in Paradise. So that has been a big focus for me in the last couple of weeks. Really getting everything, the website, the schedule, all of the stuff that's in the background set up to make it, a well-oiled machine, to make sure that when everybody gets there, it's going to be a super well-run event. And obviously the first one that we did was a huge success. We sold it out in Kauai. Vegas is going to be the next one. There's a ton of cool shit to do in Vegas, and we have a ton of cool activities planned. So check out grappleinparadise.com for that. Follow the Instagram page at Grapple in Paradise on Instagram for all the updates, and go to grappleinparadise.com to sign up. So there's a ton of different options as far as how many activities you want to do. Do you want to do jiu-jitsu only? Do you want the whole all-inclusive experience with the hotel and the meals and the transportation all included, basically, so you don't have to think about anything when you're there? You just literally are showing up, and you're going to have a cool vacation that's all set up for you, and you're going to get to train with me twice a day. So yeah, that's been a big project that we've been working on, so make sure to check that out. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. I'm going to try to get on this video, on this live feed, at least once a week, if not more. See you guys.